Also, like that movement is very interesting by the cancer and long term getting disbanded by like the continent of and like Makarov sleeping during that survival and right like the continent of like I'm definitely think right now that like the humanity is right now that like the continent of might have naturally might have came down to might have been to that once again that that like the paradise even by understanding like the kind of the first land might have been a decision that like they might have came down to by after going through all the evidence and like pointing towards like the fantasy being like the kind of logical being like the big at point in like the clash and everything. So like and even like the so the kind of so like the intent of like the compliment might have been to that like the there will go off like the by just the one another one you know might have been like the case need my attention. But like on the right now with like macro like sleeping during trial and that way not taking like the one to see the same reason just probably something that was just anger like the job that just act of like macro is sleeping falling asleep during trial alone like and the different like also thing in resulting in like the majority of like the thousand numbers like changing like their human history, which like they might have initially so, like just another warning and changing that up into like during like the map of assembly like very years that absolute final warning that like like the character skill gets into that a single another class again like any other skill that again in like the field of black. Even if they show that a single time again in like the field of black, then straight away like the intelligence will be getting not only getting the standard but like manpower as well would be was like title and most of that is also plus the wizard thing that as well the data to data for getting taken away from like a matter of it's like the kind of like the human that final warning of like a judgment that which I'm declaring right now that the council members that run and right now declaring for like micro that have less but they're basically right next the scenario I don't know if they're doing that in the range. Okay, so like me might get really concerned right now for like the friendship between that matter and like the old man remember Yaji like but like if two possibilities for like how they would be having their friendship. Like under the like it might have been due to that possibly maybe like Yaji, like the company member Yaji as well as like Makarov possibly in like the recent past possibly having been childhood friends. Like one possibility that so like if that's the case, since it has already been revealed that basically in order for a person uh to be a council member like that person having to be like there being that requirement of like that person having to be from like an over family. So like understand like little bit big massive difference right now for like maybe applicable to get like macro naturally actually being born into like a noble family. Definitely matter to so like because of that Yaji as well as like macro might have been born into that extremely wealthy noble family. So like I'm looking they might have been neighbors. So like I'm looking like back then that maybe how like during then like I'm looking like macro who might have like the only front text that macro might have had back then might have been Yaji, you know technique what might have been the typical like involved that might be there. Yeah, like I'm looking at macro might have been totally against like the way of like of like the of how he was brought up, definitely making things so that like I'm doing exactly like I'm doing in macros like life as well. In like the about like I'm doing maybe for like a similar scenario as for like basically some that lazy and sometimes with like lazy like leaving home to like chase her dreams of like doing part of like like maybe macro as well during this like younger days like might have left home to chase his dream. This might have been to also be part of that kind of until eventually macro that getting stronger and stronger to the point that macro eventually starting to soon this. And that way macro starting like the very good might have been one of the starting to like the power definitely only one possibility that I'm looking for. The other possibility that I'm looking for for like the friendship between that Microsoft and Yaji and it might have been through that maybe in like one of like the mission like Makarov or something like that. Especially in like this about that Makarov of like having saved Yaji from like an extremely dangerous situation. So like Yaji might have gone off by himself to some location, specific location with like guards as well while not expecting any danger at all. But like I'm feeling some sort of like a thoroughly unexpected scenario might have happened and that like Darfield members like nearly that and like powerful, but strong, extremely strong ones among like the Darfield, among like the multiple Darfield like that and maybe having like targeted Yazi. and attempted to like eliminate Yaji, but like maybe that can like it probably maybe be like Makarov that might have saved like without like fought back against like those strong enough windows and might have saved Yaji in that distinct pass. So like that way, like the friendship between the continental Yaji and Makarov having been formed, it's like the other possibility that I'm the other thing and my right. And also the lead my percentage impression of that like unlike macro that Yaji even though he's like a constant number of things, but Yaji might be like an extremely innocent kind of like that leads my take very much. So like even while Yaji right now probably if they totally believe in that it was due to that efforts in that the argument that resulted in like the extreme favorable outcome of that candidate being judged as like absolutely and thoroughly innocent in like the current contrast against like the current Lord that while like the Phantom Dog is getting planned like basically. So like even while for an innocent like Yaji would be like totally thoroughly straight away assuming that like it was due to like solely this like such argument about the law that such an outcome has happened. Our own judgment happened to like about this. In actually I'm going to bring that macro who would be like totally keeping a lot of things even for Yaji right now. But like even while Yaji says this, that so like this argument being the reason that comes to the macro still be to be thoroughly feeling seriously off about like the judgment favoring like the there is so to such extreme it is definitely myself into the and like definitely like the two individuals that might have the two council members that might have played definitely would have played a major role in that basically in this exact current judgment throwing that judgment favoring like the parent to like explain and those two council members will definitely be favoring as well as like the thought of who's like who right now I'm still thinking my program and will be under like the mind control of like Severin. Severin would be only having some sort of like a mind control magic and using the push like Severin might have similar definitely still thinking to my program that like in that distance of like there was like not going to the same like would be solely due to like the affection of like Severin. That's definitely my interpretation. So like Severin like according to like his villanistic goals like everything like definitely in like I'm Sagarin might be having this like home diagnostic secret work and it might be to actually eliminate all council members so that and at that point for like figuring alone to be like that absolute single rule of that this might be that figuring that intent it's also like about the speaker intent it's also that meaning about really that and I'm using into my personal and like about the day of like Segren as well as like Arsa was living sibling and like Segren the Indian different want to talk from like a noble family but like I'm doing like organizing this like Segren as well as Arsa might having there like I'm doing that like someone from like a noble family might have adopted Segren and it might be how like Segren might have eventually like like and choose that specific into that making it true to some one of the complements of that we might be important that leaking actually that comes to the micronutrient that both have something to not let separate that their actual parent might have been adopted in the leak like the definitely I'm different that distant path like and that's basically the micronutrient impression that like from that distant path that it might have been that part of the that might have eliminated like the parents of that both segment as well as upfront. It's definitely who might have been dark members, especially my particular so definitely I'm going to bring also for like about this as for like not to mother like and like her like even though I'm definitely putting like dragon and whose father would be still alive even though putting like I'm saying like not just mother might have eliminated like the last and definitely I'm going to bring like Flagrant might have possibly maybe might having played a role in that happens as like with that it's also like about the design of the different. So like definitely like I'm figuring even wanting to like make it to like the very top of the accounting or even that and I'm going to like that way might have been one that figuring and might have lost their plan might be at that point that they might have eventually ended up in that specific orphanage definitely never going to end with. And it's like as they grew up like and doing like that feeling of grudge and wanting like a revenge on like the on like Ragnil might have only within that sibling and and my grandparents were like that. The feeling of chaos might have definitely not so just solely came towards like Dragonade alone, but like I'm thinking that it might have been also towards like all the normal guns out there, also the feeling. So like at least the grand even take down even to like the person really having that absolute feeling of like loyalty, secret loyalty towards like that million. definitely my that will towards like that will definitely might be the case definitely might be but yeah. So definitely that Federer might have set up the sport even back then to that basically to make it to prove somehow that for Federer to make it to be that one of the country member that way or like Federer to like literally capture Ragni misuse his like power and position as like a country member to like injury for like Severin and to be able to like capture Ragni and that gets of like revenge on like Ragni for like eliminating Severin's attack. So like I'm thinking that Severin might have even like for instance that organized well from the Microsoft merchant and like Severin might have been that organized Severin even back then might have told Arsa about this like ultimate goal of Severin also that in the thing. So that made that yet like people that have Severin and Arsa grew up like and that hearing of grudge and wanting to get revenge um on like Dragonil and also normal that basically that might have only grew within that cigarette, but while in the case of that well, that things might have been only different. Like as well grew up that she might have been able to like realize that usually it was like due to that their parents being like part of like staff guild members that being staff guild members that like they have usually got eliminated along the lines of the super like some might have usually figured and some might have usually as she grew up might have gained that clarity as to like the normal kids that being like the soap kids that basically the on the side of good while like the darker chain that's villanistic kill who against like the side of good. So they along the line something like that might have usually figured out that she grew up especially in the friendly. Unlike cigarette, might have been what might have happened in like the past. Definitely might take a very impression that is feeling on. So like make up your assumptions that like the secret that knows something to like figure about this like figuring to like okay afraid and sure about like and that will be exactly this as well the make up your assumption that like figuring in actuality is not from technological family and like about like figuring like ultimate building stick work as well as like about like figuring like secret loyalty to like the dark member that like figuring is like the some of that dark member like use social details like something like that's would be known definitely about this like when you were talking secure about it into the person definitely my person the impression. So definitely just as well as like the fact that like Nancy is in like the parody doing like Nancy who definitely I'm bring like in like the past that they bring having given so much importance of like Nancy solely connecting to like the fact that like Nancy is like like mean that and that as well would be solely due to that all the functions of might be the twins that we might be again this so like in like a single sphere it is built like the fact that like uh, two individuals who might have like a lot of who might be having like a lot of important like figurines like that specifically as well as like NASA whom both like figurines might totally want to that get rid of. So like my technical impressions that like for figurine like from figurine realistic point of view like it might not just be like about like getting talking it wouldn't just be about like getting rid of like and to for like to get rid of them by causing villains can cause a lot of suffering to that work as well as natural. Definitely might be the case definitely might be rainbow. It might be like one among like the many important goals in like figuring life in like the secondary range because like how figuring would be in like the person would be viewed as would be along the lines of to like the figuring would be totally being as like the stuff to betray like uh, the dark skill that basically as like a traitor would be along the line Flickering would be seeing looking at Earth that can be that way that Flickering will be having that absolute range with him towards like Tesla and might want to like totally not only just eliminate Tesla but to also cause a lot of stuff like while doing so as well. Might be like the winners take intent with like Flickering and as for like Natsu and Flickering. So according to my book generation that I'm going to like it might have been like Natsu out of Flagnate that might have eliminated like Flickering like that like but then there will be that absolute feeling of grudge and desire to like get revenge and cause suffering to like Natsu as well. And through Natsu to like cause suffering, that way cause suffering to like dragon it as well. And then only for like Sequin to like eliminate like the dragon it is like only suffering to the extreme would be along the lines of like the villain's mindset of like Sequin. That's definitely my conversion. So like my book Korean versions that like all this would be like the collective great number of goals that like Korean might be having like the set of goals of like absolute villain revenge as well as like the set of goals of like basically destroying all the normal villains eventually and basically for Korean to like the that up to run that way for like the grain to like misuse all that power and this used to like um, destroy all the normal goods and this we then to have like the dark goods like take off like the world and basically it might be like this might be like the multiple and like the alternate goals of like figure it would definitely might have and so like but then definitely it might be due to this reason that like it definitely segregate as well as like those sort of tools be under like the mind control of like segregate like I'm that segregate then getting up make to getting up to like raise like the position of like being the council member as well. Probably would be solely for like segregate to like that way so that like segregate will be that way will be having like not only the grant, but like another council member in like the form of like or like they can only have like another council member as well who will be like who secretary shall be minded or will be agreeing to like thing that secretary will be saying at like any council meeting so that like secretary would be having that much more of a chance to like influence and correct like the remaining council members would be also like figuring in that and also for like figuring like to currently use that for store in like confirmations of like secret and certifications of like figuring to like cause a lot of like suffering and destruction to like progressive destruction to like all sorts of like normal insult that is definitely my consideration touch. And also my consideration was like in the content my consideration like the project still in my consideration that like eventually after like joining like the very like definitely I'm like from it eventually concepts to like it leads to like matter about like about past and about surgery and that was like relationship with like surgery how others are related to like surgery like one of like the council member and they about like surgery like realistic goals as well as like about like different surgery being like their fans being like drafted members and all that like basically who had got eliminated like really around just like that but like one might have made that absolute full conversion in that then can was like macro. So like I'm putting macros into like the person who is well fully aware of this. Definitely is my personal game. And this might be like that main track in which like macro right now would be of it. It's that feeling of me off about like the judgment of like the council right now of like judging that where it is as like so if it does like absolutely innocent in like very in class with like and just definitely my personal language. So like macro would be like totally feeling off and disturbed within as suppose like I'm literally like macro when while pretending to like sleep like to be asleep like macro might have been like strictly like observing like specifically like by paying all of its like attention towards like figuring certainly my personal number. So like and even still macro would be like one thing that like not even macro would be aware of would be that like about like the mind control of like who's dot council number by figuring is definitely my personal number. So like I'm just like macros might have been like while pretending to sleep to be asleep during the trial like macro might have been still observing paying attention to like how to the decision that like Federer was like to that right. Certainly my good language. So like macro might have seriously noticed that whole teamwork and like coordination between like Secretary and like that those thought that definitely macro would be having absolutely no idea at all about as to like tools that will definitely the coordination of that woman. So like I'm saying macro might have probably noticed this, definitely my good language. So like and that might be like the point where like things might open start like completely off of macro because like definitely my consider ambitions are like when macro will be then I'm putting out there that like just with like Yaji like that friend of macro Yaji comes in the alone like arguing in like the favor of like the fairy tale skill that definitely such a judgment won't be possible. It would be one thing that macro would be then fully aware. Definitely my consider so like it might be definitely like that figuring like totally like about whom that macro will be known so much about like through a sub confession in like the past that might be the case for like it will be like this will be the reason for like things feeling totally off and disturbingly within about like macro right now that for like figuring totally possibly having argued seriously in like the favor of like the during the trial in like the favor of like the fairy tale along with like to the slot part that is definitely through like the mind control of figuring as well might have been one kind of like definitely my considering and and definitely my personal impression right now is from that in the consumer I'm considering that at one point that there and that was news about like the shocking news like Macro getting about like the seven elimination of like Macro's friend Yaji, like the council member Yaji, like the scenario side of it. And like the scenario is like that would be actually happening and the different maybe while Secretary as well as like restore like by Secretary the mind control it is so basically, the Secretary I'm considering like at that point, we did only having like a private conversation with like Photoshop like he himself would be my controlling this doctor and like Severin would be totally doing that like monologue with him and himself while controlling that Rostov or the might control might be like a set the scenario that Severin might be totally having such habit and that will be the reason for like Severin even previously as well having been shown to like have that conversation with like Rostov definitely might be in the range for definitely while during such a private conversation that Severin will be having with Chakotay talk where like Severin will be like discussing about like first talk about like the about the next villain stick moves like up ahead like that Severin will be only planning on doing that and while like they will be having this like private conversation about from that Yaji totally happening to that by sheer coincidence like Yaji totally is happening to that pop here that extreme villain stick goals of like Severin at that point is like the scenario that and that way, like I'm thinking like Yaji at that point, it's like the big or hearing the plan, like Yaji would be straight away heading over to like report about Severin being such an absolute brilliant traitor to like the remaining council members. So like I'm looking at that point, Yaji could be rushing in the group on the way to like inform that over people connecting to like Severin to like the remaining council members. But like even before like Yaji would be able to like make it that I'm looking at Severin like Yaji is being stopped by like Severin as well as like his daughter, like basically cornering Yaji at that point, like personal that I'm looking. And like I'm looking at that point, I'm looking that being how like I'm looking that because like the train would have totally saw like Yaji or hearing like Severin that conversation with like his daughter's like personal that way like I'm looking like when they build the principles of scenario but like both like Severin as well as like Severin possibly mind control that his daughter like both of them like so that after step like attacking for Yaji together and that way like them that way eliminating Yaji so that next step is like the finale that I'm doing and doing that after doing that like I'm doing that after doing that I'm doing that Severin was like hitting that accusing like the heritage of that the elimination of that compliment Yaji like the finale that I'm doing. So that the final rendition for like during that point that the scenario on the point would be like right before like Yaji's like elimination of the like that was happening a trial another trial of like Makarov and like the something to like the implement it. So like from that point like I'm going like the kids will be talking some sort of like a different could have was like some sort of like a different problem and basically like they might have that Makarov might have called the trial especially by the company especially like yeah, so like I'm just maybe it's not just being macro but like Yaku as well as Lucy as well possibly maybe a Sangre as well possibly being brought for that trial during that trial especially metal and then so, like that trial only feeling extremely unfavorable for like macro as well as like that's when all of them that like I mean not just specifically that was bursting out and basically shouting out against like the members like due to their judgment it's also like an impossible scenario that way like such a spark happening at that point. And I'm looking that the elimination of that Yaji totally by Severin and like the mind control thing was like happening on that very night or like the very next day with like the scenario corruption. That way like I'm looking like Severin totally framing like the civilian stick Severin totally framing like the very next as like absolute traitors of all the public and like all the normal youth who has basically eliminated by council member. That way, like, I can put that straight away, like the council meeting not only expanding activities, but like also that the council will be spending the powerful army as well to like capture and like imprison and like for like the initial execution of like the entirety of like the skill. And it's like members, it's like the scenario that way at that point I'm looking like the heritage guild based like and like when guild based as well at that point in like you can do the straight away getting destroyed by like the army of the economic and like the army of the economic will be on that active funds that will like chapter. You can have several form like the very development of it and for eventual punishment of like in the scenario such a situation happening in like such is a solely like federal considering that like in the scenario where I'm looking at the and my understand figuring that would be having such a sort of like an absolute villanistic intent in this mind and that will be the sole reason for like figuring right now that would have probably around like through like the mind control of Nectarus or like the grand might have probably right now playing that major role in like the that the way they right now in like the person uh, getting like the judgment probably favoring them and like like having like the ability to be absolutely fully innocent in like their recent clash with like the fans will like Segre might have definitely played the major role in such a judgment, and it will be all for like Segre to like eventually deliver that absolute revenge on like macro as well as native as well as like as well as like the adaptive it's definitely through such an eventual future like plan like the millennium plan that they would have having like was that absolute suffering to like the adaptive flexibility and during that point for like the brain to like possibly even like eliminate like as well as like native would be also figuring that plan it definitely my person very unfortunate especially with like in like native state like both in like the first state as well as native state that serenity having that deep grudge and what that would actually have to look at revenge on the two of them but like in when it comes to like the first case like even more than anything like the brain will be insecure about some because of like all the truth about like children and children vaccinating. So like science and I mean actually make it a probability of that much of like an extreme high priority for children as well. Certainly my person theory. Oh yes, so like nothing my person theory is pressure right now and for like the scan Rob like I'm feeling Rob might actually be might have been like the childhood friend of like what Makarov as well as Yaji. Definitely my person theory infection. So like I'm thinking like what might have happened to like Rob and the friend to positive either that while like macro as well as like Yaji as well as like Rob might have been playing next to like their home in like nearby in like an area next to the home and near close to a box like I'm going there like what might have happened might have been that even though they might have like at least they might have all been like from technical family so like they might have had like powerful like wizard mage guard like looking after that while they were playing still and with like powerful dark members might have stormed in and basically might have only and they might have like abducted Rob and might have totally gotten away straight away. It's like the scenario kind of. So like that might have been like uh they might have all been like from like noble families like it might have been like intent by like the Northern to like totally to try like the noble family for like a huge sum of money like because like the last members like for like their villanistic plans and missions like they might need a lot of funding so like I'm thinking that to for that money like in such a villanistic manner like they might have totally like that distant past like back when like Makarov was still up like yeah they might have been like extremely young like back then like they might have abducted friend childhood son of and the different like what might have happened then might have been that the current job positive like either since then like even to like the very person like neither macro nor Yaji might have never heard anything at all of that about since then even so like sort of this like one possibility that the other possibility that I'm looking for like after that abduction like I'm looking like what might have happened and what might have happened might have been like the noble family to which like about might have belonged to that might have straight away probably that for might have been purposes for them that like they might have straight away agreed to like the bribe money and like might have gave the bribe money to some of bribe money to like security measures and also like like the security measures might have been about to like was to like reach like the location and to like deliver to make that exchange of that exchange of with like the bribe money like right before they were about to make it like right just before they were about to make it like what might have happened might have been like the council might have found out about like all this happens and everything the council might have sent uh, without even like of that parents from like noble family not even seeking like the help from the council like the council might have still acted on their own to bring down like the staff members and able to bring like that way not like capture that staff members and stop them like able to bring like the council might have spent their normal forces and like that for intervention by like the council might have ended up resulting in like the in a might have resulted like the exchange not happening and like the Darkfield members like escaping in time on realizing that like on like the Darkfield members might have straight away came to like the conclusion that like the family was like trying to like totally trick like the Darkfield members so like the Darkfield members might have escaped just in time but like at the same time like they might have also eliminated and might have made their completely might have been so that might have been such I think shock and trauma for like macro as well as like yeah, the from all the way that in that about definitely mitochondrial. So like mitochondrial business for like Yaji right now, even in like the person after all the great number of years, even through like the person Yaji might have been not talked about all. And either macro as well might have not. being able to like forget about like the which is childhood friend of that they would have lost. So definitely like yeah, even right now telling Macro about the beach really for like yeah, that trauma and like that stuff of losing of back then in that distant part might have been so painful for both Macro as well as yeah, that considering like that I'm considering like but I think yeah, they might want right now in like the present to be to lose another friend to like lose myself as well. So definitely might be the risk. So like this might be the reason for like yeah, possibly right now bringing up like the topic about like about to like Makarov. It's also the being able to religion. And I'm also that I think maybe like about the that like maybe it might have been that elimination of this might have happened through that family member that might have even resulted in like Makarov only like from that day on like setting up as a like ultimate goal in his life to like basically to eventually be part of like a guild, without guild and basically possibly maybe eventually like to even make it all the way to like becoming a master of like of like a wizard build and maybe even reach like that position of being like a wizard thing. All these goals like I'm putting maybe macro might have even set up in retaliation to like the soft of like the elimination of this like persistence of might have been to that way to like punish and destroy all the dark elemental all the villanistic stuff in it. That might have been what might have been. So like I'm putting maybe that it might have been like about that like might have been like the loss of like macros like persistence of that might have resulted in like macro even ending up where people today who also actually might have been on person right now. Okay, so that's actually my theory and concern right now. That's from that about putting like the favorite field in the criticism of like I'm referring definitely I definitely do to that about extreme greed. It's definitely my preference. So that definitely my preference person right now is that about inactivity might be like a villain stick cat was definitely my preference. She might have managed to like fight with probably fight with like villain stick nature from student macro and everyone even while he was part of like the favorite might have been the lead preference. So Makarov might have been like the person who might have founded like the who might have created like the fairy tale shift who's definitely might have created and once like even the above as well as like Yaji as well as like Polichka like the which of a woman like Polichka as well as all of them became like the fairy tale group like and that might have like the fairy tale might have been one among like the top strong skills exactly my constant maybe even popular so the most constant most popular skill like I said, it is back then might have been 1 month ago. Definitely might have been so definitely yeah, like what might have happened might have been that the extreme period of lack of might have eventually resulted in lack of being like thoroughly dissatisfied with like the with like definitely just like something like it might have been macro that might have founded and created like a better with like complete macros like ideologies and like ethics and everything that macro might have had that setup that role to have all just that will members like the secretary will follow exactly that definitely my complaint so like in a bunch of like different jobs like I'm doing they might have compared to back then might have taken up bunch of uh some jobs, extremely difficult jobs, which that they might have completed with present activities as a man. Yet, like I'm looking at the scenario might have been exactly like I think that during the Italian mission, like research job, like I'm doing that bunch of like in like one bunch of like different jobs, like and there might have been a situation where like even while like different jobs might have been extremely difficult different jobs, that still like the people who might have put up like the different jobs might have been no financially well off. So like they might have not been able to like pay as much as like they might have probably put up in like terms of job like definitely my friend which so like that might have been due to their preparation to for them to be able to like give like be free from like their extreme suffering kind of like a situation and all that might have been the case. So like I'm the matter of fact and might have okay in such situations like I'm looking at macro might have uh, not only themselves but like also might have set up and as like golden goal of that one of the golden goal of like the fairy tale film that is we could not accept any money even after like completing different job if like the person who's like paying for like different job is like not financially well would be along the line that for that macro might have set up for that is definitely my personal reimbursement. So definitely all this lack ethics and those things of like macro might have deep down within like rock might have been enraging the rock and frustrating the rock definitely might be very so like I'm like that way like a rock might have eventually decided to like quit like the very and join like staff skills and basically so that like I'm looking like Rob might have said that like by joining the staff skill like the to improve this extreme gymnastic acts like skill that Rob might have so that gymnastic kind of that output of that basic and like that way like making a lot of money and all that. It's definitely my very important. So that way like I'm looking like in like the fairy skill like I'm looking like the upper like macro might have started upper like it might have maybe macro that might have started like the fairy skill. And after that, like the very first person to like quit like the competitive skills might have been about me, like certainly might have today. So like after of might have quit like the competitive skill, like I'm just like not for like off to that and was even back then might have was quitting like the competitive skill like possibly having that ability to like make even more money. And then that way like not to join like that skill like I'm like might have skill met with like one of like the team members and like my daughter like look like against to like join like the last and that way like I'm from back and he might have okay early he wants to like for like the last to like accept about the like I'm thinking of my daughter early the trade like the related and my daughter need all sorts of like secret and powers of like the related and the illnesses and everything is definitely my daughter that they the like after like about my with like the creator build and like I'm going to explain like and I don't like not for instance none of the fair members might have been never been about since then even though it might have been like the age that only so the leagues might have been without the creator like after like of quitting like the build and like I'm told like an ultimate ambush attack by like powerful things might have happened or like the extremely powerful and popular service that might have been for might have happened. So we can scenario. So like I'm going to of like betrayal and like leaking of like physical information connecting to like the service that then still like the after numbers and looking that numbers attack like the largest numbers might have usually might have been able to like of like the very guild and like the very guild at that point that would be like um the sudden loss of like about as the numbers might have probably struggled to even survive that ambush attack from like the from started. But back then might have been what might have happened. So like I'm looking at the Predators because might have had taken around to might have taken a lot of injuries and like and might have barely managed to like survive that ambush attack. Might have been what might have happened with the Philip and even so like even then like I'm looking like those staff team members who had launched that ambush attack might have been able to like successfully escape back to like the dark first which might have been also what might have happened like especially might have put in this like that point, I was different like definitely it might have been like and like I was different like the Paradise members at that point might have been slowly starting to gain on the pace developing so like maybe at that point might have been like next week might have been like coding stuff like the list of Roman coding stuff that might have been set up at that point. That basically and told Makarov that basically that like she's going to like quit that's the Paradise kid. Exactly like some of that should get along the lines of the symmetry method or Makarov that basically the kid basically uh, it's like it's the prime period of like the phases of like where it is like over and we like continuing like the long like that would be like would be such an extreme it would be along the lines of maybe it was political matter both matter of that and that way like upper top like political matter with like the period is and that way like I'm even with like political as well like like with like very few still members are remaining on that point of like the remaining still members as well, all of them, including Yaji as well, like my totally quit from like the girl definitely might have been so like after quitting from like the career to like Yaji things definitely might have been from like kind of noble family might have straight away developed to uh, might have attempted to that make it to be like one of like the company member and might have succeeded in that way without the great delay after like leaving like the career to like yeah, it might have ended up becoming a company that might have been one might have especially get like I'm looking at it might have been macro alone that might have been like regardless of like and at that point like the situation might have been like it might have been like macro alone that might have been the only member of like the career still at that point might have been like the situation at that point the police might have been and like the council might have straight away someone like macro and like basically the council might have told macro that like they are going to like disband like the career just due to like they're not having any number of that. So like at that point I'm define like macro might have cleared up to like the company to like give macro time until like a certain until like 1 month or like a week like at macro. Maybe it might have been in a week that macro might have asked for like the period and asked for like the company member to like give a week of time for like macro. And if that macro is not able to like have like just like where it will the fields of like especially powerful like unqualified like maybe like then like they could like then like macro they could like probably and like the will get along the line like to give macro that one last chance to get along the line to macro back and might have lead us to like the council and like the council might have indicated. So like I'm look at that 1 week time period itself like I'm like macro might have managed to like find bunch of that skill members that in like the very for like the skill to remember transition. Maybe among those might have been like so as well as like students as well as like as well as like the remaining 2 or 3 like senior members. I think that a total of like 5 of like senior members of one of things. So like I'm putting that those initial set of like senior members like I'm putting like of like separated like I'm might have and as well maybe like might have gotten like back might have been like back when Makarov was like a singer from very like back then like in as well as like as well as like as well like yeah as well like them all as well might have gotten them all as well to like join like the territory. So like around the much might have been like only them but still like I'm not like the council might have associated them of like the territory at that point and like they might have found out that basically shortly found out that like they are all well qualified to serve as in that terms you get up the lines of like the conclusion which like to which like those council members might have came to and that way like I'm saying like that might have been how like solely this like not out like sheer will information like the where it is might have survived such an extreme situation. Uh, and definitely that might have been what might have happened in that part of the ever. So like basically according to my book, reimbursement, definitely specifically to my book, reimbursement that like because inactivity might be such an absolute villain and when like index of like about might be like one of like the top leaders among like one of like the top leader of like the among like the strongest like among all the top guilds that will be out there like among like the strongest ones among those great number of top guilds like I'm thinking like of to be one among like the many leaders top leaders of like Sonata. Like that might be like the current position of like a rock. It's definitely my underrated. Yet like I'm like rock would be always like even while rock would be moving around as part of mission and everything like rock would be always keeping that absolute disguise and covering and might be like wearing a mask and everything. It's also like my good experience. And that way like I'm even to since then that when rock has been like I said it's since then like into the person like neither Makarov nor Yaji nor Pointy none of them might have ever seen Rock again in that like the league method again. So like I'm picturing maybe of like a distinct with the scenario where like I'm picturing it being Rob that villain stick Rob that I'm picturing like the distinct user who might like I'm picturing like maybe Rob in like the distinct user like eliminating Makarov. With like Rob scoring and defeating and even eliminating Makarov. Like maybe the scenario that I'm picturing. But like I'm like once again it will be through that let's say for like macro getting that ultimate shock in like the recently kind of like a scenario where like macro would be fighting against like one of like a strong leader of like the dark side who would be wearing a mask and like as like the fight of this and by then like after like joining like the dark side he might have gained was like zero health like like he might have gained all sorts of like very powerful and forbidden magic. Like so, like I'm saying that way, that I'm looking like macro even by fighting it off against this like mass dark layer opponent. Like I'm saying that macro not being able to like tell that it's like or like the scenario. So like that fight of the thing and I'm looking like macro maybe that fight like you know this fighting its way into like a little bit of the sorry that mass dark layer is like the scenario. So like as like macro might be about to eliminate that period but maybe at that point in when like of my take off just like take off of that enough as like just like villains to strategy to like out macro like maybe that way to like shock macro to like dropping macros guard and basically to such a manner like I'm explaining like percentage or like during that vulnerable situation and looking at the macro to be like shock to the extreme and like a shocking realization of like of having joined like the Northfield, having quit like the very to like join like the Northfield and all that. So like at that point I was just like macro to be totally feeling extremely insecure and maybe having to like guard down and in that situation, I'm looking like probably taking advantage of it. And I'm looking like at that point, maybe like other staff members as well become crushing you as backup. And that way, like I'm in such a situation, I'm looking maybe through such a situation, like even doing like some days or like pop that way, like eliminating like math. So like can you just percentage of like the scenario that I'm looking about it and make it really impressive. Also, that be my personal favorite right now. It's also that maybe a connectivity of that. Just let me see this woman here, like I'm maybe being like Loki's like home to stuff was definitely about the development, right? So like she comes to the my Mr. Anderson that like can without definitely being a still without and I'm like in the distant past like and like Loki and care might have been quite they might have been doing that and the parents like I'm back and I'm looking like care might have been just like budding but still the so like I'm from that some power like an the spirits like self spirits like all of them might out of recent bus like Loki that and that be my picture was like not the different like that care might have been like the stuff of that Loki so like the young Loki back then like might have been so far with like just like it looks like self spirit and their powers and everything is definitely my medicine. So like so like my picture and bridges so like maybe in that system about that while Loki as well as Karen might have been traveling together and might have exploring like a different lives by themselves like they might have found like this like extremely unique and rare so still be on the ground somewhere definitely my good so like I'm thinking that way or like it might have been a species that might have been fitted onto like some stone structure or something that big might have been so like then both might have found that extremely strange and then like them and then with like Karen might have pulled that key out and like with like she might have added that key into like sensitive key change might have been along with like all the other friendships might have been what might have happened. So like I'm thinking like she might have straight away although she might have been also it's like I'm putting that Sarah might have been totally excited about that stuff getting to like new self so like she might have straight away someone like using the new and unique self she might have someone with like new self still spirit reason might have been what might have happened. So like and that might have been like it might have being it might have looked like an extremely powerful face of certainly certainly it might have been something like I'm going to bring that Karen might have returned like the contract but that spirit but like I'm going that self spirit might have been an extremely certainly might have been an extremely villanistic and like cunning self spirit might have been the case certainly might have been so like I'm going that what might have happened might have been that after like writing like the contract. That was the reason why Karen back then might have straight away thought like the contract involving that self-respect at that point like that same stick self-respect might have had like such extreme manipulative ways of like manipulation and they believe that self-respect might have like even managed to like manipulate like Karen into like writing contract into like changing up the contract. And so like that way like Karen without due to Karen innocent like Karen without realizing might have written like contract that might have that sense of spirit like that might have been a pretty kind of like a contract to set my revision. That way like eventually I'm looking like Karen might have ended up actually breaking one of those complex reflective scenarios that I'm looking for in the like there might have ended up like maybe in like some situation as a and or like to go that respiratory of like that spirit like there might have eventually ended up breaking that contract and that break stage of that contract might have caused like that self spirit without me gain a lot of even not trying to have like that relative sense of spirit at that point like might have totally also that with that breakage of that contract like I'm bring like the belief that and as part of like that contract like I'm breakage of like that contract like that just might have that taken over and part of like yeah might have been what might have happened definitely my cooking revolution so like that spirit like might have taken on care and like under like so like while Loki might have done that thing like in like this might have been that as was starting site that like Loki might have seen that Karen looking extremely scary unlike for the usual side and like Karen that Loki is an extremely scary manner like eliminating so that might have been what might have happened so like Loki at that point might have sort of extremely Karen from that Loki might have since then like might have totally ran away might have been from home is definitely what might happen and that will like start running away from that Loki from home might have eventually ended up with like Loki maybe it's running all the way into like eventually ending up running into that Makarov maybe during one of the mission with Makarov and that might have been how like he's seeing like the exchanges here Loki like a different like Makarov might have probably decided to that might have been a reflection that like Loki had like absolutely nowhere else to like go. So like something like Macro might have that straight away decided to like take Loki into like what it is. As like a member of it, so that it might have been what had happened. Certainly, Michael Dorian. So luckily I'm looking even since then like I'm looking like like eliminating that like the fact like I'm looking even still then like I'm looking like that self spirit that might be into the person will be focusing and controlling care might be still might have been even since then might have been something for like Loki to like eliminate Loki as well. Because like I'm looking at self spirit might be like I'm seeing carry and winner kind of like a self spirit. Definitely my brother and so like I'm might be since then that trauma might have resulted in might have been what resulted in like Loki then being totally afraid of like sensitive but and like so definitely and like always feeling away from that definitely that might have been what might have happened is definitely my those things so like I'm still thinking about my own reaction that like it might have been like the thought act of like Loki totally touching like the self piece of like music that might have like that so that way like that physical contact of like Loki but the self still feel that single act alone like might have instantly like uh, it goes like Loki's like location to straight away to lack that self realistic self-respect that might that will be under the personality positive that okay, might have been what might have happened and that might have been how like without my great delay after like local like touching technical skills of like Lucy that basically yeah complete mind Loki might have been out like what as to like what might have happened is definitely might have been so like I'm something like yeah might have been uh, in like the control of like that being might have straight away affected Loki. Might have been what might have happened with the police like in the rain so like and by the time like the narratives these numbers will be probably simply realizing that like Loki is not sort of like a previous problem like and I was definitely putting that Lucy definitely would be feeling guilty because like Lucy would be definitely feeling guilty for like Lucy and then definitely being Lucy that was person brain will be like the first thing that will then be able to like connect to the dots that basically like the last thing that everyone had seen like Loki did was like basically like like finding those intellectual people so like the connection to see those being able to like connectively connect the dots that really and for like Loki's like disturbance becoming to them issues and like the fact that like Loki had basically made physical contact with like a sensitive people like Lucy and all that so like be that way of the thing by the time like the character members like the team members would be like the team of like Nasu, Grey, Julia, Lucy, and Aswa. It's like the scenario that I'm and that's like the team that I'm that would be heading off to like look for and find like and save Loki's like the scenario that I'm so like by the time like they will be making it towards like making it towards like finally being able to like find Loki like at that point like in the situation being like Loki somebody is being badly injured by like like the scenario that I'm looking at. They are like I'm putting like the fight and I'm putting like that realistic and extremely powerful like sensitive spirit who will be like controlling care like I'm looking like it's totally using its own powers and basically creating a lot of like realistic sensitive spirit like creating a lot of powerful minions as well. And I'm wondering like with these then all those minions to like fight off against like the group of like Nasu, Ursa, Grey, Julia as well as like those is like the scenario that I'm yet like I'm looking like it will be those is that I'm looking they are like I'm going to be fighting off who see the third keys and the third skills will be fighting off against like the forest care the winner pictures to get that will be there like the scenario that I'm looking. So like maybe in that fight like I'm going to like eventually like that villain pictures like eventually like removing itself from like the possession of like care for it to like take it like pro form, like for like the pixel to spirit to like take it like pro form and to be able to like maybe that way fight freely with it like have this strength. So like I'm doing that way like uses like self the spirit for like that villain express the spirit like fight happening. In which like Lucy along with that self the spirit like spirits like will struggling their way into like into the or going and defeat it. That villain self spirit is like the scenario that I'm looking so like on being and I'm looking like after like defeating that then you fit like I'm like using like one of like the powers of like that spirit like one of like Lucy's like self like I'm getting like Lucy totally feeling that spirit that defeated the spirit back to its like origin key, like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I was throwing maybe at that point like Lucy probably that ordering self spirit to like after like feeling like that villain stick full spirit that had that would have possessed like them onto that tweet of that self spirit and then like maybe Lucy ordering her own self spirit to like only like attack and destroy that self field. And that way like that villain still spirit like getting eliminated fight doses. This is like individual for scenario that understand. That way, like dosing totally not only saving gray but also saving grace. Uh, System. So Karen might be definitely might be there. But in that way, like I'm going through such an environment, maybe even that way, so like Karen being free, like I'm just saying, maybe of like scenario where like Karen will joining into like separated as like the next member after like eventually the Julia, okay. The macro did only definitely would be accepting Julia and would like separated. So like long like Julia and then like maybe at that point macro then actually take care as well as like two new members to like the separated skill. Exactly like that whole new fresh start happening for like the parents will put like them rebuilding in the process of rebuilding like their field. Like by the time they will be completing with like their building process of like their new base, like at that point like maybe seeing when like macro will be like giving the order when they be accepting both UV as well as like they are into as like newest members of like the parents. So like any of the analysis that I'm looking at my looking to the interesting right. Also, like the movement in the infection right now has for like lack of crisis facing a fear and is recording as well as like the remaining going of their rescue with the like the link to like I'm going to put definitely would be like the lack way of like how he would get only attempting to like that would be attempting to like front up like the deal numbers like definitely the recent attack of Mexican definitely like it might have definitely strongly felt that like it's high time that they really that like Benja will stop depending on like macro like extremely age macro as well as like the senior very senior members and basically that might not only felt like uh, that asset like basically right now the asset like it's like high time that like the remaining guild members like step up their whole skills and everything so that like even if like the next time like the senior guild members are not able to like make it in time, like the remaining junior retention members will be able to like defend themselves. Exactly that will be what like the current mindset of like might be definitely my opinion. So like it would be definitely like but like that absolute good intention. Yet like that absolute skill and like would be right now totally being rolled and like mocking the remaining Faraday film members, junior Faraday film members, and even like the senior Faraday film members. That's like definitely my first theory and personal right now. So totally my different right now with like is totally mocking us like definitely I'm looking like that definitely putting right now then could be triggering now so it's definitely my different vision even though now to won't be showing it like cancel the account that's how it is one of like few Faraday film members that would be like she's extremely close to like now to keep like extremely close to this definitely my different so like definitely like is like right now mocking and being kind of like hold to like like I'm talking now. So right now it's like Natsu totally reacting and like Natsu won't be having any of that. So like I'm Natsu right now is like reacting and getting enraged and talking back towards like the scenarios that are different. So like that way like I'm like Natsu totally getting off on front and Natsu totally challenging that with to a fight a one fight is like the scenarios that I'm looking at. So like I'm just going like I'm just bring like will be on a way higher superior level of strength when compared to the level of strength of the against which Lagna is already hugely struggling against. It's definitely my of the reimbursement. So definitely that way a fight happening. Not to challenging Lagos to a fight and like not to giving it to like current have to put everything into that fight. But like I'm talking like still Lagos not to even not even being able to like manage to even that remotely like make like the fight against like even remotely challenging or interesting at all for like totally currently on like a way different level of zero level of point especially my brother level. So like easily like the fight I'm going to like as soon as it starts itself like I'm looking like without material itself like the fight I'm going to quickly getting over and like lack of such as look is like or oriented technology with like the single attack of like the scenario that I'm doing and that I'm doing seriously cutting down to like ego and was recording suddenly frustrating now to while other critics now to like when we're keeping on going on in just like so base or like talking as well as like repeatedly mocking not to as well. That's like the scenario that I'm doing. But like I'm gonna stay down that which we don't want that have to genuine good intent within so that way to that creates that absolute need within like to like surpass like and like to create that more of like a determination not only within like Natul but also within like us as well as like all the remaining fairy tale junior fairy tale skill members to like totally step up their skills and be strong enough for like so that like they will be able to defend themselves next time. Without like relying on like math over like things that fairy tale members definitely my those very important. So like I'm looking like even with like us even with like it already being revealed that they will be not only Asra but like neither Mara not being able to like understand like the kind of person lacks like the possibility of genuinity that might exist within like even after like Asra and Mara being part of like the game for so long, like them not being able to like uh them not being able to like understand that it's like and like that that liberating only would be happening in like the way it is in people. It's definitely my opinion. Like is absolutely genuinely like and like as well as like Maran then that the objective is definitely and also like one of them would be only be able to that to realize like that is completely like in theory. Okay, so like definitely my person very embarrassing right now that like it would be solely due to like the help of lack of that like the parents were able to like survive like the recent class against like the hand might be the case definitely my person very embarrassing because like but everything like it might out of like after like Mara's like phone call to lack of right before like that ultimate attack by like the and by the entire of like the madam skill like on like the regular skill members and like the base like I mean like during that call by Marat to lack of like at that point itself of what might have actually happened might have been like that it might have like, kept up with like fake acting and might have pretended to like not yeah in front of like Marat and that could be all part of like by now because that could be all part of like Lactos's way of like being a responsible senior Faraday guild member. Like it's definitely my friend because like stealth from like point of view like right now that stealth would be absolutely essential for to be able to like embrace the entire absolute rage within like the Faraday guild members towards like rage and frustration within like the remaining Faraday guild members towards so that that would be only hoping for like that rage to be like the fuel for like the Faraday guild member in their growth and their determination, even their determination to get stronger so that like they could like actually do something against like so that like they could only crush Lax's ego like basically in such hopes to like only to have like the very next member be desperate to like train extra hard so that like they can and upskill themselves so that like that way as like a responsible senior skill member like that way we'll be trying to like blend out like the relative skill members into like trying to like quickly upskill them and get them stronger. Definitely might be the case, definitely I could remember that. Definitely my preference that like macro as well would be like well now fully aware of like the ways of and like as to like how responsible of like a senior player like the student is like about what is like macro would be well fully aware of. It's also definitely my very ambitious. So definitely my very ambitious that like macro might have totally strict and like to uh, might have totally strict and like to that about like lack of helping them during like their own clash against like the battlefield when in actuality even macro might have been well and fully aware that basically in actuality what like might have done Kantona right up like another fall towards like fight before like incoming attack by like the final skill that would find out at that point itself like after like another fall like straight away phone so like just at that point it might have straight away like phone and told Mr. James to like straight away head over to like the kid and basically to take care of it to just take care of like the situation with like the high that might be like the only thing that like might have told Mr. James like Mr. as well would be well enough to be aware of like the way that deal with like the remaining guild members as to like the importance of having to like maintain his shelf for like the greater good of like the growth of like the very guild members maybe around one thing that like any like Mr. might be like fully aware. So like unconsciously Mr. might have kept it for secret. Well, definitely my personal impression. So definitely my personal impression that like so it might have been due to like act of like phoning Mr. that like the predator skills even being able to like survive that fight against like the fantasy and might have been what might have happened is definitely my personal impression. And macro will be like well fully aware of it. Both of definitely my personal impression. Yet like I'm saying macro might have consciously lied to like Mara and like the remaining fairy skills that like along and by saying along the lines of like lack of didn't help them at all during like the attack of like the final skills. And all that would be definitely also macro as well. So be adding in to like the fuel to which like macro as well we totally believe in that like fuel of race within like and frustration within like the remaining fairy skill members towards lactose would be would be seriously allowing them to like totally grow in their skill, strength and skills and everything to get on the lines macro percent would be enough to be certainly not the direction because like for the road ways of like talking of and everything the different the way that like why as to like white like stuff all that like I'm saying that macro will be better for other especially my social interest. So like macro as well to be probably helping laxes out in like the process of laxes is like attempts to like trying to map like the current so definitely that will be called that will be happening especially in the pyramid. So like along with like laxes like macro as well will be totally tricking like the remaining faraday members for like the greater good and the strengthening up of like the faraday guild was definitely with such a good thing that is definitely would be what might be happening right now is definitely imagining the weekend right. Also definitely my is a very impression right now as for like right now when it is strictly telling now to and like the remaining faraday but as for like eventually being like the one to like inherit like the faraday that as well will be totally an absolute like definitely my is very good. Especially since like I think like it turns out they didn't reveal that like there are a total of five junior fairy tales children in which like just like Arthur as well as like and Mr. Jet alone are like the senior fairy tales members that I think like the remaining fairy tales the junior fairy tales members including have to have only seen like those two unknown like senior fairy tales underpaid senior fairy tales member uh, Abusifying will be far stronger than like especially microservices based on causing both different level of complexity of strength and compared to even the strength of that it might be the case with the so like even saying that like he's going to like he will eventually inherit like the fairy tale like they will leave all that that would be totally lack totally putting on that club to like totally like enrage all of like the fairy tale children also that like they will train hard and get stronger. I know certainly even like should be when I'm fully aware of that like that there's to underweight senior fairy tale children of being far superior stronger that like to a point of level of strength that like it simply can't but not even like it should be like right that might be the actual situations that you might be very emphasized. So like definitely my brain question were like in the person like it couldn't just be like misleading but like even latches as well. Your phone would be like except for like macro it would be definitely latches as well as like misleading alone that might have same those that unrevealed to other senior parents still members. So definitely my opinion and among so and the different like both the student as well as like even language will be like in the present as well will be of like the feeling and belief that they believe the want to like that the exact fairy tale guild member to inherit eventually inherit like the fairy tale guild and be like the new month of like the fairy tale guild usually like the symptom that will be not neither like this nor student but like this will be definitely one among those two underage senior fairy tale guild members that will be one among them heroes that will be like usually inheriting that's the fairy tale guild and that will be taking like the fairy tale guild forward will be along the lines even like it would be truly take down naturally will be delivering definitely even though the definitely micro right. Yes, so like definitely my putting your intention right now that's for like this current research job was like and now to info about food data at like the town of business like and considering that definitely this research job like my share and absolute points in terms of will be bringing that's when like so towards like where Lucy will be currently project that will be definitely in one of those chapters in one of the chapters in like the town of business itself definitely in that area that like the scenario that I'm saying, right? They will be attempting like to different job and to be progressing through like with a job like initially I'm towards like the end of like the job like the balance of like I'm looking and getting like the biggest shock and twist and surprise with like them finding Loki yeah in like a trap kind of like a situation in that scene trouble and like at that point is when I was going like the fight between like Lucy and Karen not even Karen would be like totally school was up to like I'm like the fight between like Lucy and Karen like everything that needs to be happening there. It's like the scenario that I'm going to and my memory. And I'm going to try maybe this being like the reason for like that among like those two underrated senior parent to remember like one among them like deciding to like remain under the like maybe being able to that one among like the two the main characters, senior characters will remember of living like that his father. So like I'm doing things like the father will be of that's the mindset that like a guild is like it's like a place where like things should be kept professional. So like and maybe like he might have wanted to like avoid like the whole father some emotion in like professional place like the guild. So like this might be the reason so like the father of like this to like avoid like while in like the game might be the reason for like him probably mostly staying away from like the guild and like only showing up to like the guild only when like who's like something like has to when he feels that his person like absolutely so extremely necessary and in like when he feels that like the ability is that much to the space might be the case of definitely my brother remedy. So like the father of like might be mostly staying away from like the vegetation and only to be showing up when he feels it's necessary. So that like lack of food like totally like and these show up and be present in like second phase whenever he wants. Might have been also the case, especially when the so like I'm doing macro on the other hand is totally unlike like unlike the way of thinking of like macro would be totally unlike that of like lack of power. Definitely my percentage. So like another thing actually like might have taken a lot after like macro stack and like macro was young. It's definitely my consideration. So like when like macro was young, like I'm looking like macro as well might have had like the same way of like dealing with like Gilman was exactly like just doing right now in like through that approach shell, through that through and motion manner. Might have been how a macro as well might have been while he was part of like the religious guild during his like you. It definitely might have been like the guild definitely might have been like might have been only like father that might be of like a totally different gap and personality might be like the case that makes my person very so right. Also like definitely not looking very interesting right now. That basically since like a language is like veteran of like matter of like I'm separate. So among like those two unrevealed in priorities for example for maybe of like one among them state that like his father and like macros like also like a possibility where I'm looking. So like right now would be totally bluffing about like inverting and being like connection of the naturally maybe naturally like they don't even like this as well. What next will be truly believing would be like it would be like it was part of that would be like eventually inserting and becoming like the new master of like the where it is just once like macro would be like stepping side as like a master being the like position as like the master of like the effect will be along the lines even lack of ability that's strong decom believe it's definitely my position very younger. So like I'm definitely sitting right now for like the possibility of like with father being one of like the underweight senior paradise build member. It's definitely my position very younger. So like I'm looking like also definitely I'm still picking to my position impression as about like for Julia still like something will be would be attempting with that at least and we'll be trying to like we'll be only following like the team of like Gray and Asana to do the like scenario where I'm going. But like I'm along the way like I'm doing like totally I'm doing like Arsa would be totally finding out that like basically was up to Peter operate about like I'm a part of the finding out about like it's like skillful follow up to the it's like personality that I'm looking and that way like I'm doing like definitely at that point great maybe like telling Julia up to Julia like why she isn't leaving and all that is like personality that I'm doing and like during that whole traction I'm looking at which that whole traction eventually resulting in that can be also help like taking the decision to take Julia the like personality that I'm looking by seeing like to the like body language and like the way she will be interacting and all that you can like a further experience like the being able to like tell that like Julia means and I'm looking at that only with maybe even being able to like sense that maybe that for like Julia having appreciate feelings towards like great skills. So like I'm doing that way that a start of uh taking the decision to like take Julia along with like for the current research job and like you can just like the scenario that I'm going to really connect and my very interest. Yes, so like definitely my person very important right now is that so like say a point for deciding to like do this play and basically distributing like the players for like the play and all this. Definitely I'm also running like once like literally it would be like that very day and time for like them to like do the play like and like there from all those great number of players that they would be distributed they have distributed like I'm saying like there being like a huge audience and I'm like that person who's in charge of like that play and everything like I'm looking him probably being so in the shop at that point is like the scenario by suddenly seeing like full audience that is like building like the scenario that I was so like I'm thinking that once like the play begins and once like that's up and now so as well as correct as well as Lucy after like that that I'm putting like quite a thing extra hard and putting in all that effort into like practicing for like to play like the scenario that I'm referring. So like yet like I'm referring like once like the play begins like I'm referring like definitely like referring like it mainly seeing in the music that I'm referring like music alone would be like the one that I'm referring would be like performing like the play in a great manner. But like I'm looking at even Ursa as well as like especially Nasu and Grey, like I'm looking their performance I'm looking like not being up to like the mark at all with like the scenario that I'm looking. So like while they will performing like the play, like I'm looking like the audience starting to like do the like the scenario that I'm looking and at that point I'm looking like as uh I'm looking like only like the scenes of like Lucy alone in like the play that like I'm looking like while Lucy would be saying like the dialogue like I'm looking like Lucy doing performing like the play with such absolute grace and like while listening to performing like them out the crowd clapping and like while as well as like Natsu and Gray, it would be like the part for like Appa and Natsu and Gray. And like while they would be like saying the dialogues, like at that point I would like them totally the audience would be bored at them like the scenario that I'm making. And eventually I'm looking like Arsa and Natsu and Gray totally getting fed up with like the constant tone from like the audience that I'm looking like at that point I'm making them totally using that getting angry and frustrated to like the point while I'm looking at when to play, continuing on with the play like I'm playing them. So they accidentally unleashing out like powerful magical attack with like the scenarios that I'm looking and that way like the entirety of like that building like getting fight by the magical attack like through accident and I'm looking that way like the entirety of the building collapsing and getting destroyed as like the scenarios that I'm looking. Yet like I'm looking like miraculously like the audience still managing to survive that's the scenario that I'm looking and that way like I'm putting like macro and after that like I'm putting like macro once again giving that while will be getting all by himself like I'm putting macro at that point that Marato is delivering another paper like that forgetting about like the next question like the that's when to have cost with like something doing like display incident is like the with the scenario that I'm looking for like and my experience and like doing that like macro also taking space and like with like with the scenario like I'm the and my experience.